Hey everyone. I have a confession to make. I have allured you here today with the promise of a talk about how to be an amazing leader. But really this is going to be a talk about how to also have a better life. I hope you're not upset. Put this on. All right, we'll keep moving, and then I'll just bring it up to speed. So I'll start with a story. Like you heard, I was raised in France, and the first time I moved to the United States to live here, I was 15 years old. And up until that point, I had only been in the French educational system, in and out of France, but only French education. And when I moved to Florida and joined high school, I learned about a neat little American concept called multiple choice testing. Yeah, you might as well have told me that in America, kids go to class, the teacher puts on the television, and then leaves. I didn't even know what that was, but I knew that it sounded easy, and I was worried about how am I going to grow, and am I going to learn anything? Fast forward, I learn English, things are going well, and I decide that it's time to take the practice SATs so that I can go to university in the States. And I take my PSAT, multiple choice, and I fail miserably. And it was so heartbreaking. And after speaking with my guidance counselor and some peers of mine, I learned that in order to ace the SATs, it's not about how much knowledge I have. It's not about having the right answer even. It's about knowing how to game the test. So my French educational training that had me prepping for the baccalaureate, where I would be able to write long-form essays on some obscure quote by Jean-Paul Sartre, was worthless here in order to pass these SATs or to do well on the SATs. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because in my work with founders, I see something similar very often. And it's, I'll work with a brilliant founder who has amazing technical skill, and he has either climbed the ladder or he got funding to start his startup. And then he realizes that his job is about managing humans, and all that technical skill that got him here isn't what's going to help to build a great culture, isn't what's going to help to be a good leader, isn't really what's going to help keep people happy and productive at that company. So this isn't going to be about tips or tricks today. We have enough hacks in this community. I want to talk with you about what is really at the core of being a leader that people really want to get behind. So we're going to drop kind of deep really fast because we don't have that much time together today. I want you to think of your success as a leader as an iceberg. You know how the iceberg has the 10% that's sticking out, that's the stuff that you can see, and then 90% underneath? So in your leadership, the 10% that's visible is the stuff that you're saying, the stuff that you're doing with people, how you're engaging with others. I think my mic isn't working. Maybe? Can you hear me? Yes. You can hear me. And that 10% of how you're going to do with people out there is impacted by the 90% underneath. And this is how much you are paying attention to your inner world, how much you're working on your personal growth. So essentially what that means is that we're all leaking, right? Me telling you about how to hack your way to appearing more confident won't really help you if we're not talking about how do you get yourself to really live from that place of confidence, to really live from that grounded being. So that's what we'll be talking about today. I've got 4 concepts that I want to share with you. Just like the multiple choice test sounded really easy to me, this stuff, you might think that it's easy. Here's the thing. It's simple concepts, but it's not easy to master it unless you're implementing it, unless you're working at it. So hopefully, you'll be thinking through these not just as interesting concepts, but as things that you can implement in your life and see how you might be able to start putting them into action. The first one is be less busy. And this is just a sexy way of saying, get your house in order, create more space in your life, and see how you can find free time for yourself. I want you to notice the addiction that you have to that jolt of adrenaline that you get every time that someone says there's a fire to put out and we need you to do it. I want you to notice your addiction to the behaviors that keep you stuck in a never-ending cycle of busyness. I want you to notice how much you like saying, I'm so busy. But how's that really working for you? One of the things that you can do right now is start being more selective. So I'm talking about you're the only person who can be the gatekeeper of your mental space. So for you, that might mean don't look at your email first thing in the morning. Don't scroll through Twitter late at night because you think you're just going to look at the news for 2 minutes, but 45 minutes later, it's past your bedtime. And you haven't really done anything constructive. You haven't really been resting your brain or getting ready for bed, right? So we're not being selective with how we use our time, and we're not being selective with how we protect our mental real estate. So think about what those things would look like for you. Give away your Legos. Some of you might know this concept. There is a great long-form article that Molly Graham from Google wrote a couple of years ago already, I think. And in it, she talks about if you're a founder or if you're leading a team, get in the habit of giving away your product, your projects, your code, so that you can give others the opportunity to grow, and so that you can create more of that space in your life, so that you can have a chance to grow. What's the next thing you want to work on? Stop doing the same thing and hogging all the good stuff, right? Start sharing it. Get bored. This is where you're going to have your most creative, your most useful ideas bubble up. But you need time and you need space for that. Because if you've got a back-to-back schedule that you love to talk about, you don't have the space for those things to come up to the surface. They can't breathe. How are you going to do it? So that's number one, be less busy. Next is knowing your triggers. So triggers are those things, just like the name says, they trigger us to have a behavior that is usually negative that doesn't really warrant that kind of reaction, but somehow it's a raw nerve for each of us. So for you to discover what those are, think back to things that have happened to you over and over and over in history and why the same situation keeps happening and why you feel the same way each time that situation happens. There's something there for you. Pay attention to the inner critic, whether you're judging others or judging yourself. That's also taking up mental real estate. Listen to your body. Anybody here ever get hangry? Yeah, I'm like a hangry, I'm like the hangry spokesperson. So for those of you who might not know the term, hangry is when you're so hungry that you start getting angry and like you're not very pleasant to be around. So for instance, don't schedule that important conversation with someone when you're hangry. Go get yourself a snack and then have the conversation like a normal person, right? Not like the monster that you just turned into. So things like that, it's just really paying attention to what's happening to your inner world and knowing how they affect you. That is going to impact how you are with others. Number 3 is knowing your why. Simon Sinek has this awesome talk. I think it's titled How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And it's a TED talk, and maybe some of you have seen it, and he's got a flip chart and like 3 circles that he draws maniacally. And it's about knowing your why. He says, people won't get behind you. And by people, he means not just the people that you're selling your product to, but your people, the people who are working with you. People won't get behind you because of what you do. People won't really follow you because of how you do it. people are really going to want to get with you because of why you do it. So you need to know why you get up in the morning. That is super sexy. Somebody who knows where they're going, they know what the big picture is, they know what their mission and purpose in life is, they get legions of people behind them without having to do a thing. My own work has found that when you know your why, it's much easier to stay grounded during a storm, right? So that bout of infighting that's happening with your co-founder right now, that seems smaller and less important when you keep thinking about where you're going in your life and why you're doing it. The other bonus about knowing your why, this is my favorite really, is that you kind of get your head out of your butt. You're not so self-important. You're up to something bigger, something that's bigger than you. So really get clear on what that is. Also, studies have shown that people who know what their meaning and purpose is in life are less prone to depression. So most of these studies have been done with older people, but I guarantee you it works for anybody here. I've experienced it in my own life. So get clear on why you're here, and people will get behind you. The last one is asking for guidance. We've all heard that it takes a village to raise a child, right? I like to say it takes a village to raise a founder. For me to think that I can build something that is going to have real-world impact, that's going to affect millions of people and is going to be really meaningful, that I'm going to do that by myself, to think that is delusional, really. So where do you get guidance? Because it's really easy to be in that period of a challenge and forget that we're not alone. So I want you to get in the habit of asking, who or what can I call upon right now when it's so tough and I feel so alone? You can call on your higher, wiser self. This is when you take yourself out into the woods just to think and to reflect and to ask for that answer to come to you. You reach out to your tribe, your peers, your people. Who are your people? For those of you who have a spiritual or religious practice, you can ask for divine guidance. People who really believe in this say that they've seen miracles happen and the answer comes down for them. Who's your trusted confidant? Call on experts. Get yourself a mentor, get yourself a coach, but don't stay alone. So there you have them. These are 4 concepts that, if applied, can radically transform not just the way that you relate to others, but how you feel about yourself. They can radically transform your life. But there's one catch. Nothing will happen if you walk out of here today and you go, yeah, that was interesting, and you do nothing with it. Because insight or inspiration without action is worthless. I was just at Catherine Hoke's talk this morning from Defy Ventures. And she said the same thing. Inspiration doesn't really take you anywhere unless you do something with it. So this is my call for you to do something with it. Here they are, the 4 concepts. I'm inviting you right now to pick one that you are committed to taking action in the next week. Because if you want to get your ROI for your 30 minutes of sitting your butts in these chairs, you want to think about what you're going to do with this. Write it down, put it in your to-do list, text it to yourself. Go on, I'll wait. And while you wait, put this up for you. So this is a quote by the great Jim Rohn. And really what this means to me is, whenever there is something that is not working in your leadership, you're stuck somehow, look inside first. There's usually, most likely, something that needs to be addressed in here, before you go and try to fix it with other people. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you want to talk more, you can find me on my website or on Twitter.
Does anyone have any questions? Can take a couple.
So with the be less busy aspect,
Yes.
I have trouble a lot of times. I go to my quiet time, I meditate, and then I have an idea, and it's like, okay, I want that to go. How do you balance between taking that quiet time to be less busy and working 100 hours a week, 120 hours a week until it's done? How do you find that balance?
Well, what's the ROI of you working yourself to death? What's the ROI when you are working for 16 hours and your brain is at half? So for those of you who saw Daniel, did you see Daniel Pink's talk this morning? So he talked about timing and how it's basically paying attention to how your body and your mind function at different times of the day and then scheduling your life around that. Because there is data showing that our brains are not as effective at certain times of the day. So what's the ROI at hour 16 of working nonstop versus the ROI of taking a little break and then seeing how much more productivity you can get after that? So that's the question I would go to. Sure, we can always, I'm a new mom, so I'm learning the concept of I can always have more things to do. But it's something that you have to schedule. It's something that you have to make a priority. It's not going to happen by itself. But the ROI gets so much better when you do put those pockets of time in there.
Other questions?
Hi, thank you for your talk. So about your point of being less busy, it will include a lot of rejecting other people's requests. So what kind of advice would you give us in order to, reject the requests in a very diplomatic manner and prioritize your own mental health and other aspects of your life?
Yeah. So there are much smarter people than me out there who have come up with really graceful ways of how to turn things down. So the first thing is you have to be okay turning things down, right? And a lot of times we are not okay with saying no to people because we have some story about what that person is going to say about me if I say no. So we're so caught up in wanting to please people that that's the first barrier. So I could give you all the tips and tricks for how to decline invitations and how to decline things gracefully, but that is going to be worthless until you get clear. So this is you going in here and going, when I take pride in saying yes to everything that comes my way, and when I take pride in not rejecting people, what image of myself do I get, and what payoff do I get? How does that make me feel, and why do I stay attached to that behavior? So that's where I would start, is see why you're challenged to say no and why you feel so bad about it.
Other questions?
If you're shy, you can find me later.
Let's give a warm applause and a hearty appreciation for Sylvana.